Nicole Malliotakis. Congresswoman, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. First, I have to ask you, I know just several days ago you announced that you had tested positive for COVID. How are you doing?
I'm okay now. We were quarantining and following the CDC guidelines, although I quarantining for 10 days and now it's just 5 days. So it seems that the rules are changing as we move along. But thankfully, I was vaccinated and certainly my symptoms were mild. But I think that the reality is what this is showing me and what I think is showing others is that people that are vaccinated are getting the virus. They are spreading the virus. And so we need to have a real more practical approach to this. And I think instead of all these mandates and restrictions and fines and firings, our government really needs to be moving toward ensuring that we have therapeutics and treatments. And I think that's where we need to go, because this virus is not leaving. It is mutating, it is changing, it is evolving, but it's still here. And we need to learn to live with it, because we have to reopen this economy. We have to get people back to work. We can't have people taking off 10 days if they are with the virus. And so I think we need to have a more practical approach moving forward here. And that's something that I've been advocating for since the beginning.
Well, let me jump in here. It's so great to see you, Nicole. She's a very old friend of mine, and I've admired your work for the city and the state for a long time. So I'm glad you're feeling better. One of the problems New York is facing is that we're a great big city full of office towers, and only 28% of office workers have returned to their offices in New York City. Only 8% full-time. That is just the lowest rate anywhere in the nation. And of course, when workers don't come back to the office, they don't stop to buy a newspaper in the morning. They don't stop to buy lunch in the local restaurant. And you can see what it's doing to the city of New York. And now this new mandate looks like a death blow to the city to me. What are your thoughts on what should be done in New York City?
I absolutely agree with you. We're seeing a slower recovery in New York City as compared to the rest of the nation. Very problematic. We're also seeing businesses leave and residents leave for good. And that is really problematic. I think at the end of the day, what we're seeing here is an overreach by the government that is making our recovery slow down. Mayor de Blasio imposed these mandates on our city workers. And what are we seeing there? Well, even those who are vaccinated are testing positive. And so you're seeing a staffing shortage. First, they fired healthcare workers that weren't vaccinated. Now we're having a short staff due to those who are vaccinated testing positive. Staten Island Ferry was not running on full schedule today. You saw shortages of the NYPD, FDNY, and EMS today as well. So this is a problem for quality of life, for city services. Now he's moved that onto the private sector. Same thing. If people are not working and producing, we're going to have an even tougher time with our economic recovery. We're going to see a bigger impact on our supply chain as well.
I'm amazed that when all these hundreds of millions, billions of dollars in the case of New York City and Chicago, for example, were sent via the American Rescue Act to our big cities, that the money wasn't spent in investing in technologies to virus-proof our public buildings and our transportation. Instead, it seems that this money is being literally dumped into politicians' hands. What are your thoughts?
Well, that is why a lot of us did not vote for this last package, because first of all, the money was being raided. You saw a lot of this money that was being given falsely to people who filed unemployment claims or PPP. In fact, there's a lot of fraud that we've asked the COVID subcommittee to investigate and hold hearings. We need to have accountability for that. That is number one. That's why I also introduced legislation that would require an audit for federal monies that we give to states and municipalities of 1 million or more, like New York City, because we know Mayor de Blasio has a history of squandering money. But I think right now the issue has to be for us to push for more monoclonal antibodies, pushing for more of these therapeutics and treatments. So because COVID is here to stay, we need to adjust to it. We need to have this type of treatment because we can't just shut down our city or have staffing shortages or businesses closing whenever there's an uptick during a seasonal uptick. So I think that's what we need to focus on right now, and I'm committed to doing that. I wrote to President Biden asking him to do just that. We need to make sure that we have the antibodies available for people so they could be treated, so we can just adapt.
Well, Congresswoman, let me add on to that, because I think a lot of people probably watching tonight are saying, you know what, if this is happening in New York City, maybe my city is next, maybe my town is next when it comes to these mandates that we're seeing across the country, things that a couple of years ago we never thought we would be hearing and dealing with, but now it's becoming reality. You had Dr. Fauci saying that masks on airplanes, that should be going on in perpetuity. He's saying now that maybe we should consider vaccines for domestic travel in order to allow people to fly. I mean, at what point, what is it going to take for these mandates to go away? It seems like it's a never-ending process, and the more that we allow, the more that they're going to place upon us.
Well, there's no doubt it is a slippery slope. It first started with vaccine passports in New York City. We've sued against that. Unfortunately, it didn't go where we needed it to go. Then you had city workers suing over the mandate. Now you're going to have businesses. The reality is there's two things that are going to happen next week. One is we're going to have a new mayor in this city, which is something to celebrate in itself. We're hoping that the new mayor will reconsider, and he said that he will look at these mandates and reconsider them, which I think is a step in the right direction. And the second thing is we will have the Supreme Court hearing the vaccine mandates of Joe Biden on January 7th. And so those are going to be two significant things, and we'll have to see how all of this plays out. But right now, the reality is there's only two options for us. There's the legal battles, and then, of course, there are elections. And people have to, elections matter, and people have to vote for the policies that they want. Next year we have a gubernatorial election in New York. You can't keep voting for the same people that are putting together all these mandates, all these restrictions, and all this, all of this on your life.
That's right.
That's right. I think we're going to see a lot of people coming out. Congresswoman Malliotakis, thank you so much for being with us, and we're glad to see that that you're feeling better.
Great to see you both. And Betsy, always wonderful to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole.